Birria Loaded Tots with Jalapeno Ranch.
Y'all check it out because you don't want to miss this flavor punch.
It's about to get delicious. Let's braise up this chuck roast.
Now we're going to go ahead and trim off all the big pieces of fat. And I love to use chuck roast for these kind of things because it lends itself well to braising. It's a well marbled piece of meat and releases a lot of rich flavors and has an excellent mouthfeel. Since we're going birria style, I'm going to use that Boudreaux's Fire and Smoke Creole seasoning just to give it a little bit of smokiness and that extra spice. You want to make sure to season it up liberally and get every side. Now birria is known for its rich, flavorful, and tender meat. It's normally braised down with a mixture of dried chilies, vinegar, garlic, onion, and various aromatic spices. You normally find this served up as tacos with a side of the cooking juices called consomme. But not today, because today we're doing it on homemade tater tots. Now I'm going to take my onions, garlic, and chilies, and I want to throw them into a dry pan just to get them toasted up, start to release some of those flavors. You'll know it's nice and toasted because it's going to fill your kitchen with a smell of something wonderful. You can go ahead and remove those up and put some all in your pan. And we want to brown up all of that chuck meat. Get that all nice and hot, and you want to lay your chuck pieces in nice and flat until they start to brown up. They ought to look like this whenever it's time to flip them. And you're not done yet because you want to make sure you get that beautiful brown crust on all pieces on all sides. Once you accomplish that, you can go ahead and remove your meat from your pan, and you want to use those drippings and throw those same aromatics back in that pot to get them to soften up. Once they get soft, we could go ahead and add in some beef broth and start to deglaze our pan. Make sure you scrape up all those burnt bits on the bottom. That's going to give that sauce a nice flavor. Go ahead and add your meat back in. You could add the juices that collected in the bottom of that tray. I'm using some of this red chili sauce I found, and all that pretty much is tomatoes, vinegar, chilies, and lime juice. And make sure you cover to the top of the meat with beef stock. Go ahead and place your lid on your pot and throw that in the oven and let that braise for about 3 hours.
I got my 2 Idaho potatoes. We're going to bake them up to make these tots.
Wash and clean your potatoes, and then you want to take a sharp knife and pierce the skin all the way around both of them. And go ahead and wrap them each in foil.
Into the oven at 350. Potatoes are cooked. Let's peel them and grate them up.
Now these big old potatoes bake for about 2 hours. You want them to be soft, but you don't want them cooked all the way through like a baked potato. Once they peeled, I go ahead and just get a cheese grater and grate both the potatoes up. And as you can see, when I'm in the kitchen, I'm being watched pretty closely. Let's season up those grated potatoes. I'm using that Boudreaux's Fire and Smoke in here. I'm using some of this Jalapeno Ranch seasoning. I'm going to go ahead and crack in 2 eggs, and then I'm going to put some flour. This is going to help hold those potatoes together. Go ahead and give that a mix, but you don't want to overdo it, turning it into mashed potatoes. I'll put the whole mixture into a piping bag and cut about a 1-inch hole at the bottom. That way I can squirt out quite a few long strips of this mixture. I'll cut them into bite-sized pieces, then I'll pop this in the freezer so that they can set up. That meat's been cooking for a few hours. Let's take it out and see what we got. Just like I thought, that meat's falling apart and tender. Let's use a fork and go ahead and shred this up. We're going to shred the whole bowl. Now, taco style, we'd have had this a lot looser so that we could serve up a cup of it next to the tacos. But for this, I wanted to make this sauce thicker. We're going to place the whole batch into a blender and blend it up smooth. I'm putting it into this fancy squirt bottle, but you don't have to do that. You could just spoon it on your tots later. Now on to this Jalapeno Ranch. Let's put 1 cup of sour cream into a blender along with some parsley leaves. I'm going to put a whole heaping amount of this magic from Wood Fire and Whiskey Jalapeno Ranch seasoning. And then topping that with just a little bit of buttermilk. Go ahead and blend this all up till it's smooth. And then again, you could go into your fancy dancy squeeze bottle.
Y'all holler at my boy Marco at Wood Fire and Whiskey. Check out his brand new dry seasoning, Jalapeno Ranch.
I got those tots out of the freezer, and I went ahead and formed each one up separate, dropped them in some oil at 350 degrees. Then we cooked them up till they're golden brown like this. If we're doing loaded tots, you know we're gonna have some cheese, so I'm grating up a block of fresh cheese. Take that shredded beef and then put all over them tots. Come with a whole lot of it. I'm gonna throw on some of these Boudreaux's pickled peppers. Squeeze on some of that birria sauce. Now you gotta cover that whole thing with that cheese. Pop this under the broiler till that thing gets nice and bubbly, golden brown. You can take it out. Now this one was a little bit of work, but it was well worth it. Let me know down below what y'all pouring up to go with this one. Make sure you're following Boudreaux's Backyard if you like to see recipes like this.
Cheers, Marco.